figure out a way to get creative because the BFTC timeline is an 18 to 20 week program. And what we've done to address the openings we have for 1811 BRIC agents is we opened it up to the interagency and said, hey, do you at Secret Service or DEA or ATF want to come over? You guys went through FLETC. You guys were cops or military officers. You're law enforcement. So we created a shortened bridge program of 6 weeks at Quantico that if you want to come over and be an FBI agent, you can do so. There's transfers all the time. We just made it easier. And we're also recruiting police officers who might not have a college degree. But in my opinion, that does not disqualify them from serving our community.
2 words. We do. The director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation was asked a simple yes or no question. Do you ask FBI applicants who they voted for? And before he could stop himself, before the trained lawyer and former federal prosecutor could apply any filter, 2 words came out. We do. He caught it immediately. Corrected it in the same breath. Said the FBI does not ask that question and called it a mistake. All of that happened in under 5 seconds. But those 5 seconds are more revealing than almost anything else that happened across 2 full days of congressional oversight hearings. Because they show you the difference between what someone has been told to say and what they almost said before the instruction kicked in. The question now is what those 2 words revealed. And to answer that, you need to understand what was happening inside the FBI in the months before that hearing. The fired agents' federal lawsuit, filed by Brian Driscoll, Steve Jensen, and their co-plaintiff, alleges that during internal FBI reviews, employees were asked who they voted for in the 2024 presidential election. That allegation is unverified. Patel has denied it under oath. The court will eventually produce a documented answer. But here is what the 2 words we do created that no court order can undo. They are on the permanent Senate record. And they sit in the same hearing where Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut said something that changed everything else.
Colleagues, that you would honor the internal review process of the FBI. I'm not going to mince words. You lied to us. In the short time that you've been FBI director, you've presided over a rash of retaliatory firings. 3 FBI agents have recently sued you. They are FBI agents with 60 years between them of distinguished service, rescuing hostages, saving kids from predators, dismantling
A United States senator told the director of the FBI that he lied. Not that he was mistaken. Not that his memory was imperfect. That he lied. Patel's response was not to deny a specific lie. It was to say the accusation was something he did not take lightly. Those are 2 very different responses. And most coverage moved past that distinction without stopping on it. Denying a specific lie requires pointing to the specific statement and explaining why it was accurate. It requires engaging with the substance of the accusation. Saying an accusation is something you do not take lightly engages with the emotional weight of being accused. It says nothing about whether the accusation is correct. Patel chose the second response. Not the first. Now here is the specific statement Senator Blumenthal was calling a lie. Because that is the piece of this story that connects We Do to alone and tells you exactly what happened between January and September of 2025. In January of that year, Kash Patel sat before the Senate for his confirmation hearing. Under oath. He made a specific commitment about how the Federal Bureau of Investigation would operate under his leadership. He said, there will be no politicization at the FBI. There will be no retaliatory actions. And in his written Senate questionnaire, also part of the official record, he stated, no one will be terminated for case assignments. No one. 4 case assignments. That was January. Then came September. The same hearing where We Do slipped out. And the same hearing where Adam Schiff caught something that changed the entire meaning of the January commitment. He caught a single word. Senator Adam Schiff of California is a former prosecutor. He led 2 presidential impeachment trials. He understands the precise meaning of precise language in a way that very few people in that hearing room do. When Patel was asked in September whether he had terminated any agents because of their prior case assignments, his answer was specific. He said, "No one at the FBI is terminated for case assignments alone." Schiff stopped him there. He said, "You are being very precise. You said alone. Does that mean agents were terminated in part because of their case assignments, alongside some other stated reason?" Patel repeated the sentence with the word alone still in it. Here is why one word changes everything. In January, the commitment was absolute. No one terminated for case assignments. Period. No qualifier. No exception. No legal hedge. In September, the testimony was conditional. No one terminated for case assignments alone. Which means you can terminate someone whose case assignments are one factor among several, as long as you can point to another factor alongside it. A performance record. A failure to uphold constitutional duties. An unspecified administrative concern. Any additional factor, however thin, satisfies the alone formulation while violating the spirit of the January commitment. Schiff made this point on the Senate record. He asked whether agents were terminated in part because of January 6 assignments or Mar-a-Lago assignments. Patel did not answer. He repeated the sentence with alone still in it. And Senator Blumenthal, sitting in the same room, said 4 words. "You lied to us." Now let us look at the specific cases that Blumenthal and Schiff were pointing at. Because the alone formulation only matters if there are documented cases that test it. There are 4. Steve Jensen worked inside the FBI overseeing the Bureau's involvement in the January 6 investigation, the largest domestic terrorism prosecution in American history. He was fired. Brian Driscoll was the acting FBI director in the early days of the Trump administration. He resisted demands from the Justice Department to provide names of agents who had worked on January 6 cases. He received the Medal of Valor, the Bureau's highest honor for exceptional courage. He was fired. Chris Meyer was incorrectly identified on social media as having participated in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents investigation. The identification was false. His connection to that case was not confirmed. He was fired. Walter Giardina was a longtime FBI agent whose case history included investigations connected to the Trump administration. His wife was days from dying of a terminal illness when he was fired. A fellow agent went directly to Patel and personally begged for mercy on his behalf. That request was denied. Patel has stated that every termination was based on performance and failure to uphold constitutional duties. He has not provided specific performance documentation in open congressional session. He has cited ongoing litigation as the reason. The federal lawsuit filed by Driscoll, Jensen, and Evans describes these actions as a campaign of retribution based on political loyalty rather than performance. That lawsuit is active. It is unproven. A court will decide. But here is the question the alone formulation raises about these 4 cases. If each of these agents had case histories connecting them to Trump investigations, and all 4 demonstrably did, then the alone formulation allows for exactly this outcome. Terminate them. Point to any secondary factor as the stated reason. And the January commitment technically holds because case assignments were not the sole reason. Schiff saw it. He named it out loud in the hearing. And Blumenthal called it what he believed it was. A lie. Now here is the moment from this hearing that has received almost no coverage. And it is more significant than the Blumenthal confrontation, the Schiff alone exchange, and the we do slip combined. It is a moment where Patel did not slip. He did not hedge. He did not redirect or deflect. He volunteered something. Earlier in the same September hearing, before any of the most contentious exchanges began, Patel was describing his mandate as FBI director. He outlined 2 directives he said the president gave him. Crush violent crime. Defend the homeland. And then, without being asked, he added a 3rd. He said the president also gave him a mandate to level the institution that has become the weaponization of law enforcement. Level the institution. 3 words. Chosen freely. Spoken voluntarily in a congressional oversight hearing while simultaneously defending himself against accusations of politicization and retaliation. Here is the logical problem those 3 words create. If your mandate is to level an institution you have defined as politically weaponized, and you are executing that mandate against the same workforce you committed to protect from political retaliation, the two goals produce incompatible outcomes for the people caught between them. You cannot simultaneously commit to no retaliatory actions and execute a mandate to level an institution against the same agents, without those two things colliding. Blumenthal heard that collision and said, "You lied to us." Schiff found the word that documented the collision. And somewhere between January and September, the man who made the January commitment became the man who volunteered the September mandate without being asked. Stay with us. Because what that means for the four agents, the federal lawsuit, and what three specific legal developments will determine in the months ahead, that is what Part 2 is going to examine completely.
The weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you, and we have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
Well,
Every outlet covering this hearing led with those insults. The shouting. The gavel. The biggest fraud. The internet troll. And every outlet missed the same thing. The insults did not come from nowhere. They came from a specific sequence of questions that Schiff asked in the minutes before, questions that Patel could not answer without creating a problem on the official record. Here is that sequence. Schiff had just caught the word alone. He had asked directly whether agents were terminated in part because of January 6 assignments. Patel repeated the formulation without engaging the question. Then Schiff returned to the Epstein files. He asked about the percentage of total material that the 33,000 released pages actually represented. Patel redirected to his broader statistics. Then Schiff raised the Maxwell transfer. He asked whether Patel expected the American public to believe the Bureau of Prisons moved Maxwell independently of outside input, given the timing of Todd Blanche's private meeting with her. Patel said he was not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates. 3 consecutive questions. 3 consecutive redirections. At which point Schiff asked the question that produced the explosion. He pointed at the precision of the word alone. He asked whether agents were terminated in part because of their case assignments. And he suggested that the American public watching this hearing was capable of understanding the difference between the January commitment and the September formulation. Patel called him the biggest fraud in Senate history. Schiff said, "You can make an internet troll the FBI director. But he will always be an internet troll." That exchange is remembered as spectacle. But what produced it was not spectacle. It was 3 specific unanswered questions and 1 caught word that Patel could not escape without either confirming what the word implied or losing his composure trying. He lost his composure. Now here is a piece of this hearing that connects everything else and has been almost completely ignored by coverage of the Blumenthal and Schiff exchanges. Earlier in the same day, Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana conducted a very different kind of questioning. He asked Patel about the Biden-era settlement with Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. For context, Strzok and Page were senior FBI officials who exchanged personal text messages during the 2016 election cycle that included statements about Trump. They were both removed from their positions. They subsequently sued the federal government over the release of those texts. In the Biden administration, the Justice Department settled those lawsuits. Strzok received $1.2 million. Page received $800,000. Patel confirmed both figures under oath. He confirmed that the settlements were authorized by Attorney General Garland and Director Wray. And he confirmed his view that the FBI under the previous administration had been used as a political instrument against Trump. Senator Kennedy asked whether Patel had found evidence of the FBI being weaponized against Trump politically under the Biden administration. Patel said yes. Here is why that confirmation matters for everything that followed. Within the same hearing, Patel confirmed that the previous FBI used its authority in ways he considered politically motivated against a specific political figure. And then he confirmed a mandate from the same political figure to level the institution that did so. If the previous FBI can be described as weaponized against Trump, and if leveling that institution is the mandate Patel is executing, then the question Blumenthal, Schiff, and Dean were all asking from different angles is the same question. Where exactly does leveling an institution end and retaliating against the individuals inside it begin? Patel's January commitment said those were the same thing and he would do neither. His September testimony said there were different things, separated by the word alone. And his voluntary mandate statement said leveling was an explicit directive from the president. The slip and the strategy are now fully in view.
And unqualified and unfit. And there is mounting evidence that these retaliatory firings were the result of direction from the White House. There have been instances in the past history of the Bureau of political interference and political direction from the director's office, but not the kind of institutional interference that we're seeing from the White House right now. I'm going to ask you, has anyone from the White House contacted you about personnel decisions?
I completely disagree with your entire premise that I have lied or am misleading the FBI. If I were, the results.
Patel denied it 3 times in 30 seconds. He does not take orders from the White House on personnel decisions. He has never taken orders from the White House on personnel decisions. No one at the White House has ever given him an order on a personnel decision. 3 versions of the same denial. Back to back. With slight variations in wording each time. In legal contexts, that repetition pattern has a name. Over-denial. When a witness states the same denial multiple times with minimal prompting, it can signal the importance of the denial to the witness rather than the simplicity of the question. That is an analytical observation from how language functions in testimony. It is not evidence of anything on its own. What it signals is that the question mattered enough to answer 3 times. Here is what sits alongside that denial on the official record. The federal lawsuit filed by Driscoll, Jensen, and Evans contains a specific allegation. The lawsuit alleges that Patel himself privately acknowledged to one of the plaintiffs that the firings were likely illegal, but carried them out because of orders from the White House. Patel has denied this allegation specifically and consistently. It is unverified. A federal court is now the venue where both the denial and the allegation will be tested. But here is the structural problem the 3 denials create. Patel's own mandate, the one he volunteered without being asked, was to level an institution. He said the president gave him that directive. The president did not give him that directive in writing in a published document. He said it was communicated to him directly. If a verbal directive to level an institution can be transmitted from the president to the FBI director, then the question of what other verbal communications occurred about how that leveling would happen is a question a federal court is now positioned to examine. The denial says no orders came from the White House on personnel decisions. The mandate says a directive came from the president about what he was supposed to do. Those 2 things are not automatically contradictory. But they are in tension. And that tension will be in the discovery record of the Driscoll lawsuit. Here is the complete picture. The slip happened when Patel was asked whether his FBI asks job applicants who they voted for. Before the correction came, 2 words came out. We do. Quickly caught. Quickly walked back. But on the permanent Senate record regardless. The strategy was visible across the entire hearing. In January, the commitment was absolute. No one terminated for case assignments. In September, the testimony was conditional. No one terminated for case assignments alone. 1 word added between January and September. For agents fired in that same period, all with documented connections to investigations involving Trump. The mandate was volunteered without being asked. Level the institution. Given by the president. Executed against the same workforce the January commitment was designed to protect. The denial was stated 3 times in 30 seconds. No White House orders on personnel decisions. While simultaneously acknowledging a presidential directive to level the institution. The Schiff explosion happened when 3 consecutive questions about the Alone formulation, the Epstein files, and the Maxwell transfer all produced redirections rather than answers. And Blumenthal looked at the January commitment, the September formulation, the 4 firings, the We Do slip, and the leveling mandate, and said 4 words. You lied to us. Patel said he did not take the accusation lightly. He did not say it was wrong. 3 legal developments to watch. First, the Driscoll federal lawsuit. Discovery will test the denial against the allegation. If communications between the FBI Director's Office and the White House about specific personnel decisions exist, and exist in a documented form, they become subject to court-ordered production. Second, the Alone formulation itself. It is now on the Senate record from September 2025. It sits alongside the January commitment from the same witness. Any future proceeding involving the fired agents' cases will have access to both documents. Third, the We Do moment. The fired agents' lawsuit alleges that FBI employees were asked who they voted for in internal reviews. That allegation is unverified. But the We Do moment means the FBI director's own unguarded response to a direct question about that practice is also on the Senate record. Discovery will determine what those 2 things have in common. 2 questions for the AVA reports community. The first. Between the January commitment, no one terminated for case assignments, and the September testimony, no one terminated for case assignments alone, 1 word was added. Do you believe that word represents a genuine clarification of a consistent policy? Or do you believe it represents a deliberate legal modification of a commitment that could no longer be kept exactly as stated? The second. Patel denied White House orders on personnel decisions 3 times in 30 seconds in the same hearing where he voluntarily described a presidential mandate to level the institution. Do you believe those 2 things can be fully consistent with each other? Or does the tension between them raise a question that only the discovery process can answer? Drop both answers below. We read every comment. This is the kind of debate this community was built for. Subscribe to AVA Reports and turn on the notification bell. The next documentary tracks what happens when the Driscoll discovery process begins, and what it will force into the public record that no Senate hearing has been able to compel. Thank you for watching.